So last year I lived in Agua Prieta, Sonora, and I lived there for a year working with a border ministry. And one of the jobs that I was involved in was working with a coffee cooperative named Just Coffee. And they had their roasting facility on the border, and their agriculture was down in the state of Chiapas. And so after working with them for about 6 months, it came up that the family in charge of the operation in Agua Prieta was going to be going home for El Año Nuevo, the New Year, and they wanted a big group of people to come with them and to share in those festivities with their family and with their community in Chiapas. So I was all for that and really excited about getting to see more of Mexico. I had only been in border cities so far, and I wanted to see what the rest of the country was like. So we had I think we had 8 people who planned to go on this trip. It was me and another intern and another family in addition to the coffee roasting family. And we had a 3-year-old who went on the trip, and also Vicky, who was from Chiapas, wanted to bring her dog. So we had 8 people piled up in a van that we used from the Catholic church. It was the Catholic church in Agua Prieta that happened to have a big 15-passenger van. And we didn't have another way to get down. We either were going to go on a bus or rent a car. And so renting a car was just too expensive. And we convinced the church to loan us their vehicle. And we prayed for the best since it was about 20 years old. And we hoped that it would get us there all in one piece. So we were preparing for this trip. We were going to leave the 26th of December so that we could get there by about the 28th or the 29th. And before we left, someone showed up on Vicky and Danielle's doorstep. They showed up on the steps of the coffee roasting plant in Agua Prieta. And this person was a guy named Luis. Luis was from Guatemala, and he was trying to migrate to the United States. And he had just found his way to Just Coffee because he had met Danielle, the director, and another guy, Tommy, who worked for the cooperative the last time they went to Chiapas. So Luis was only 24 years old and was just full of life and full of energy and full of stories, and was just one of those people who just wins everyone's heart over with his stories. But the other thing that was really distinct about Luis was that he had lost both of his legs, and so he was in a wheelchair. About 2 years ago, both of Luis's parents died within about 3 months of each other. And he was just a young guy, just about 21 or 22 when that happened, and just wasn't sure what he was going to do with his life. And he was just so sad at this huge loss, and so many losses in just such a short amount of time. And he was also from a very poor family, and so without the income of his parents, he was going to be forced to make his way on his own, and he just couldn't see how that was going to happen. So he decided to try and migrate to the U.S. He had a brother living in New York City, and so he hopped on a train and tried to work his way north to the U.S. border. So a lot of migrants cross on trains through the southern states of Mexico, through Guatemala, and they cross the border from Guatemala to Mexico, and then they take the trains up through Chiapas and Oaxaca and Veracruz. And this is a way that they can do this for free, and also it's a way that can get them very far very fast. So it's something that a lot of people do. The other thing about it, though, is that a lot of people know that they do this, and so it's also illegal. It's not only illegal for a Mexican person to cross into the U.S. without papers, but it's illegal for a Central American, and in this case a Guatemalan, to cross into Mexico without papers. So a lot of people prey on these people, and they rob them, they rape them, they beat them up, and try and exploit them because they know that they are afraid, and they know that they are very scared of being in this country without papers. So that's kind of what happened to Luis, and he was on the train for a few days, I think, and I'm not sure exactly how it happened, but I don't know if he got in a fight or if he just fell asleep and ended up falling off the train, but that's where he lost his 2 legs. So anyways, it was a miracle that he was alive, and someone just found him bleeding on the side of the railroad, and they were luckily very, very helpful and compassionate, and took him home to their house, and were able to give him some medical attention. But his legs couldn't be saved, so they had to amputate both of them. So here he was, this 22-year-old Guatemalan guy, in the prime of his life, really, but just having lost both of his parents, being on this quest for a new life and a new job, and suddenly finding himself with no money and at this point no legs. So anyways, but Luis is a really positive guy, and he has this incredible zest for life and just really strong belief in himself, and he's really optimistic, and so he wasn't giving up. So he made his way back to Chiapas and was staying at a migrant shelter there. It's a migrant shelter specifically for migrants who have lost limbs. So that tells you how many people that's actually happened to. Quite a lot to have to start a shelter for those people.